legislature a group of bills which memorialize the education reform that I've been discussing in town hall meetings across the state and that I've been working on over the course of the last few months with Commissioner Sir. I first want to thank him for the really invaluable contribution that he has made and continues to make to this administration, to the state, in terms of bringing our education system into the 21st century. And so I'm glad to have him here with me today, and I thank him for all the work that he has done on this group of bills. Specifically, let me go through what we're proposing. First, an implementation of a multiple measured statewide evaluation system by the 2012-2013 school year that requires observation and evaluation of all educators at least twice per year, with evaluations at the end of the school year using the rating categories of highly effective, effective, partially effective, or ineffective, which would be a monumental change to the system that we have now, which is basically a pass-fail system that has become meaningless in terms of our ability to be able to truly evaluate the effectiveness of teachers, to have those evaluations be something that is worthwhile in terms of student learning. Second, that tenure attainment with recommendations for tenure eligibility would occur after 4 years of service and after ratings of effective or highly effective have been achieved for the preceding 3 years. Tenure status is lost after an evaluation as ineffective for 1 year or partially effective for 2 years. Now, to be really clear on this, we do not want to see the elimination of tenure. What I said in the State of the State address was we want to see the elimination of this system of tenure that we have now. And what we want tenure to become is something that good teachers earn and will protect good teachers from retaliatory firings, political firings, personal relationship type firings, but will not protect bad teachers and allow them to stay in the front of the classroom. So, if you have 3 years in a row of effective or highly effective, you get tenure. But if you have 1 year where you're rated ineffective at the bottom of the scale, or 2 consecutive years of partially effective, then you lose your tenure status. You can earn it back under this system by working with the folks in your school to improve your performance. But at that point, you become an untenured teacher, and you have to earn it back. The very simple message to the people of New Jersey is that teachers in New Jersey should be held to the same standards of accountability that everybody else is held to in their job. Which is, if you're doing a good job, more times than not, you keep your job. And if you don't do a good job, you're probably going to lose your job. I think that's the standard that most New Jerseyans are held to, and I don't see any reason why we should hold teachers to it. And as I've been having these teacher meetings across the state of New Jersey, I can tell you that good teachers have no fear of accountability. As long as there is a system that, which this will have, which allows them to feel protected when they're doing their jobs from the type of firings I talked about, they have no fear of being held accountable. Now, we're talking about the last bill. It kind of gives us a little prelude to the third one. The third one deals with last in, first out. And what I said was that most teachers who are effective are not worrying about losing their jobs if they're effective. Let me tell you the effective teachers who are worried about losing their jobs. The young teachers, the new teachers who come into the system, who because of this antiquated last in, first out system, are the first ones to go, based purely upon seniority. So the third bill would be to reform laws governing reductions in force and to end the last in, first out system, so that layoffs are based on effectiveness, not on seniority, and are determined by the evaluation system that I mentioned in the first bill. Again, if what we want is to have the most effective teachers at the front of every classroom in New Jersey, that should be regardless of seniority. If the most senior teacher is the most effective teacher, then that's great. Have that teacher be in the front of the classroom. If that most senior teacher is one of the most ineffective teachers in the school, then that teacher should go if there are reductions in force, and not the young, effective, enthusiastic teacher who's doing his or her job really well and teaching our children. Fourth, we would end forced placement in schools. And so what do we mean? That there would be mutual consent, agreement by both the principal and the teacher on all teacher assignments to schools. Where a principal doesn't consent to a tenured teacher's placement in his or her school, that teacher will continue to receive compensation for 12 months while searching for an assignment in the district, after which he or she will be placed on unpaid leave. What we're not going to have occur any longer is this passing the lemons around to different schools in the district. The principals being forced to trade the bad teachers because the tenure system is so unworkable that they have to keep them. Now I'm hoping that our tenure system will darn near eliminate and make this almost unnecessary. But until we have a tenure system that we know is working, it's necessary to have mutual agreement for placement of teachers in the schools so that principals can be the leaders in charge of their schools, and so that teachers can't be moved against their will from one school to another if they don't agree to a placement in a certain school. This empowers not only principals as effective leaders in their schools, but empowers teachers to be the masters of their destiny as well in terms of where they teach and where they believe they can be most effective. Next, we want to reform teacher compensation to focus on an educator's demonstrated effectiveness in advancing student learning, as well as whether the educator is teaching in a failing school or is teaching in a subject area that has been identified as a difficult to staff subject area like science and math. And so we want to act like everybody else in business acts. You know, if you have difficulty, if the market is thin in a particular area, supply and demand tells us that the supply is low on those type of folks, the price is going to be higher. And we should acknowledge that. We want to get great science and math teachers into schools where there is a low supply right now. We should be able to pay them more under the current union-generated system. We're not. Because it's determined only by seniority how you get paid. In the same way, let's pay people based upon their performance. As I've said, for those of you who cover the town halls, I'm sure you're sick of hearing it. This is a profession where there are no rewards for excellence and no consequences for failure. We need to end that. And we need to make teachers work as hard as they work now, but when they do well, be compensated more for it. You know, if you listen to the union, all they ever talk is about the downside. Well, there is significant upside here for teachers across New Jersey who are already doing a fabulous job, but are getting paid exactly the same as the lousy teacher down the hall. That's demoralizing to the good teacher, in addition to not being positive and effective in terms of getting student achievement. And so let's bring education into the 21st century in terms of the way we compensate people for excellence. And this is about compensating people for excellence. We also would have a bill that does some due process changes. An eliminated provision that requires a teacher against whom tenure charges were filed to begin receiving a full salary and benefits 120 days after the start of the process. We also want to establish a firm deadline requiring administrative law judges to have hearing tenure revocation cases decided within 30 days. There's no reason for these things to drag on for months and years, running up legal bills for the districts and making them more reluctant to be able to do it. We've just done this, something very similar to this, in the interest arbitration with police officers and firefighters. A rocket docket on arbitration cases to be resolved. There's no reason the same kind of standard cannot be implemented for review of tenure cases by administrative law judges. This will help to make the tenure challenge system more effective for districts, and swift justice is good justice for the folks who want to avail themselves of that system in the teaching profession. Lastly, the last bill would allow for school districts to opt out of the civil service system. There is no reason for our school districts to be in the civil service system.